There's something about abandoned hospitals that freezes you in your tracks. Maybe it's the silence, the kind that feels alive. Or maybe it's the thought that every cracked tile, every rusted bed frame, once had someone's last breath clinging to it. Over the years, I've walked through countless forgotten places, old asylums, burned-out wards, decaying corridors where the line between the living and the dead feels thin. And every single one of them has left a mark I can't shake off. Tonight, I'll take you inside 5 of the most disturbing, true stories ever to come out of America's abandoned hospitals. Places where tragedy didn't stop when the doors shut, and where some things or someone's still refuse to leave. So turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and if you start to hear something behind you, don't turn around. This is 5 disturbing true stories from abandoned hospitals. If you love real horror stories, unexplained encounters, and chilling true events, make sure to hit like, comment, and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Now let's begin. I've been to a lot of haunted places in my life, but none of them ever followed me home. At least that's what I used to tell myself, until I spent one night inside Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Waverly sits high on a hill just outside Louisville, Kentucky. From the road below, it looks like a sleeping beast, 5 stories of crumbling brick and broken windows, staring down over the city like it's watching. Most people who come here do so for the thrill. The ghost tour, the overnight investigations, the just one photo kind of visitors. I wasn't any different at first, but I wasn't here for a dare. I was here because of my father. He died from lung cancer 2 years ago. And when I learned Waverly was once a tuberculosis hospital, where thousands had coughed, bled, and died inside those walls, something about it called to me. Maybe I thought I'd understand something about him. Or maybe deep down, I wanted to know if the stories were true. The night I arrived, the sky was a dull bruise, heavy with clouds. The gate was chained, but there was a gap just wide enough to squeeze through. I parked my car off the side of the road and climbed the hill with only a flashlight and a small voice recorder. By the time I reached the front entrance, the wind was screaming through the broken windows. The smell hit me first, mold, rot, and something else underneath, like old medicine and rusted iron. When I stepped inside, the beam of my flashlight cut through a thick wall of dust. The silence wasn't silence at all, it had texture, like the air itself was holding its breath. I started on the first floor, the administrative offices. Paperwork still lay scattered on the floor, turned yellow and brittle. A chair had toppled over in the corner, its legs snapped. I clicked the recorder on and whispered the time, the date, and the words, "Waverly Hills investigation begins." That's when I heard it, a whisper, so faint I almost missed it. It came from the hallway behind me, a woman's voice, barely there. I spun around, shining my light down the corridor, but there was nothing except peeling paint and the faint outline of a cross on the far wall. I played the recording back just to be sure I wasn't imagining it. And there it was, a single word drawn out like a sigh. Leave. I almost did. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. The second floor was darker. My flashlight barely reached the far end of the hallway. Every door I passed was half open, revealing rooms filled with old bed frames and rusted medical equipment. Some still had curtains hanging in tatters like torn skin. Halfway down the hall, I came to a room that looked different. There were handprints on the walls, dozens of them, smeared in a brownish red that looked far too dark to be rust. I raised my camera, and through the lens, I caught a flicker of movement in the corner. It was small, crouched low to the floor. For a second, I thought it was an animal, maybe a raccoon, until it stood up. And then it was gone. The air felt colder suddenly, like I'd walked into a freezer. And then came the sound, a soft, rhythmic squeak echoing faintly through the hall. It took me a moment to realize what it was. A gurney. I followed the sound, every step slower than the last, until I reached a large double-door marked treatment wing. One of the doors hung off its hinges, creaking with the wind. I pushed through, my flashlight shaking, and what I saw on the other side made my stomach twist. There were rows of metal beds, all lined up perfectly, as if the patients had just stepped away. Dust coated everything, but the center of one bed looked clean, freshly disturbed. And sitting beside it was the gurney. I swear to you, it was moving. Just an inch or two, rolling back and forth. There was no slope, no draft strong enough to push it. And yet it moved. I backed away, heart hammering in my chest, when my flashlight flickered once, twice, and died completely. In that instant, I heard footsteps rushing toward me. Not shuffling, not echoes. Running. I froze. Something brushed past me fast, close enough that I felt the air shift. Then the gurney slammed against the wall with a metallic scream. I stumbled backward and bolted out of the ward, fumbling for my spare flashlight. When it finally came on, the hallway was empty. The gurney was still pressed against the wall. But there were footprints on the floor, wet, dark, and leading straight toward the stairwell. The third floor was where the real stories came from. It's where the nurses' quarters and the infamous room 502 were. People say a nurse hanged herself there in the 1920s after discovering she was pregnant and infected. Her body was found dangling from a light fixture, swaying above the tiled floor. I almost didn't go up there, but I told myself I'd come this far. The stairs groaned under my weight. As I reached the landing, I felt a sudden pressure in my chest, like someone pressing down on me. The air grew thicker, heavier. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back. When I reached room 502, the door was already open. Inside, the moonlight spilled through the broken window, washing everything in a pale silver glow. The room was empty except for a single, rusted bed frame. I walked in slowly, the beam of my light sweeping across the walls. And then I saw it, a rope frayed, still tied around the old pipe above. And beneath it, the faint outline of footprints in the dust. I whispered almost to myself, "Is anyone here?" For a moment, nothing happened. Then my recorder clicked off on its own. And I heard it, a woman's sob, quiet, broken, coming from right behind me. I turned, but no one was there. The door, however, had closed. I don't remember running. I don't remember how I got to the stairwell. But when I looked back, I saw her, a shape standing in the doorway. Not solid, not smoke, but something in between. Her head tilted just slightly, and even from that distance, I swear she was looking right at me. By the time I reached the 4th floor, I could barely breathe. That's when I found the body's chute. Locals call it the death tunnel, a long concrete passageway built to secretly move corpses out of the hospital without alarming patients. It runs deep into the hillside, straight into the earth. I pointed my flashlight down into the tunnel, and it just disappeared. The beam got swallowed by the dark. There was something about that tunnel, something wrong. The air felt different there, heavier. My ears started ringing, and even though I was alone, I could feel movement, like dozens of people brushing past, unseen. I don't know what made me do it, but I started walking in. Each step echoed louder than the last. Drip, drip. Somewhere ahead, water tapped against stone. Then I heard whispering again. Dozens of voices this time, overlapping, some pleading, some angry. My light flickered, and in that strobing half-dark, I saw figures. Not solid people, more like shadows wearing the shapes of the dead. They were everywhere, crowding the walls, reaching out. And then one voice cut through the rest. A woman again, sharp, urgent. "Get out!" The light died completely. I ran. I don't remember how far or how long, just that my lungs burned and my throat felt raw from screaming. When I finally burst through the side exit and into the night air, the storm had broken. Rain poured down in sheets, soaking me to the bone. I didn't stop until I reached my car. I never went back to Waverly Hills. But sometimes, late at night, I play that recording again. Most of it is static and muffled noise. But near the end, right after I'm heard whispering I'm leaving, there's another voice that follows. Soft, calm, almost kind. It says you already did. And then there's laughter, distant, echoing, the same laughter I heard in the dark that night. You can tell a lot about a place by the way it breathes. Some buildings exhale warmth, homes, schools, places where people lived full lives. Others hold their breath, like they're waiting for something or someone to come back. Rolling Hills Asylum was like that. It didn't breathe. It listened. When I first arrived in Bethany, New York, the sun was just starting to sink behind the trees. The old asylum sat on a lonely stretch of road, surrounded by nothing but farmland and woods. From the outside, it looked more like a broken church than a hospital, long arched windows, stone walls covered in vines, a roofline that sagged like tired shoulders. It started out as a poorhouse back in 1827, a place where the sick, the mentally ill, and the unwanted were all thrown together. Over the years, thousands died there. Many were buried on the grounds, nameless, forgotten. I came to Rolling Hills because of a rumor. A local historian had told me about a spirit that supposedly roamed the halls at night, a tall figure known by staff as Roy. He'd been a patient there once, over 7 feet tall, gentle, childlike. They said he still wandered the second floor, calling out for his mother. I didn't believe it, not entirely. But I had to see for myself. When I stepped inside, the air changed instantly, thicker, colder. The sound of the outside world disappeared, swallowed whole by the building. I was greeted by Sharon, the caretaker, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a voice that carried a hint of reverence when she spoke about the place. She'd been living on the property for years, running the tour, maintaining what she called the energy. Before leaving me to explore, she said something that stuck with me. "Just be respectful," she said. "They were people once. They still are." She smiled when she said it, but her eyes did. I started in the main hallway, long and narrow, with doors on both sides. My flashlight beam caught flakes of paint falling like snow, old medical charts pinned to corkboards, and a wheelchair lying on its side in the middle of the floor. The quiet was suffocating. I could hear every sound I made, my own footsteps, my own breathing, echoing back at me. And then I heard another set of footsteps. Not behind me, above me, slow, heavy, deliberate. One step, then another, then a pause. I turned off my light and just listened. The footsteps moved across the ceiling, heading toward the far end of the hall, then stopped again, right above me. I whispered into my recorder, second floor movement. Possibly structural noise. But even as I said it, I didn't believe myself. Because then the footsteps started again. Only this time I wasn't alone. I climbed the stairs to the second floor, every creak sounding like it echoed forever. The moment I reached the landing, I saw it, a massive shadow stretching across the far wall. Too tall to be human, too slow to be light. I froze. My flashlight flickered once, twice, and steadied. The shadow didn't move, but the air around me felt charged, like static before a lightning strike. Then came the voice. It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was confused. A low, trembling man's voice that said, "Mama." The sound hit me like a punch. It wasn't coming from ahead of me, it was beside me. I swung my light around, but there was no one there. Just peeling wallpaper and a broken window, letting in a sliver of moonlight. I took a step forward and felt something brush my shoulder. Not cold, not wind, more like the soft weight of a hand. I turned, heart racing, and whispered, "Roy." The floorboards creaked behind me. Something big was moving, slow, heavy steps retreating down the corridor. I followed, trying to keep my breathing quiet. My recorder was still running, the little red light blinking in the dark. That's when I entered the morgue wing. The air there was different, damp, metallic. My flashlight caught the glint of metal drawers, long since emptied, and a table with restraints bolted to it. And then I saw him. At least I thought I did. A tall figure at the far end of the hall, standing perfectly still. The beam of my light didn't reach him, but I could make out the outline, shoulders hunched, head tilted. I said his name again, barely above a whisper. Roy, no answer. The figure turned, slow, deliberate, and then walked into the next room. I followed, my pulse pounding in my ears. But when I entered, the room was empty. Except for one thing. On the dusty floor there were footprints, enormous, bare footprints leading straight to where I stood. And they stopped there. At that point, every part of me wanted to leave. But I wasn't done yet. I sat down against the wall, turned off my light, and just listened. For several minutes, nothing. Just the slow creak of the old building settling. Then faintly, so faint I almost missed it, came humming. It was a man's voice, deep and low, humming something that sounded like an old lullaby. The same melody my grandmother used to sing when I was a kid. It echoed softly through the hall, and I swear I could feel it in my chest. Then suddenly a crash. Something had fallen in the next room, metal hitting concrete. I jumped up, turned on the light, and ran. On the floor lay an old medical tray, one I hadn't noticed before. And sitting on top of it was a single toy block, the kind used in children's wards decades ago. The letter carved into it was R. I stared at it, frozen. Then my recorder, still in my pocket, clicked off again, all on its own. I left the building right after that. When I reached the parking lot, Sharon was waiting, her flashlight glowing in the mist. "You saw him, didn't you?" she asked. I didn't answer. I just showed her the block. She nodded, her expression calm, almost sad. "Roy likes to play," she said softly. "He doesn't mean to scare people. He just doesn't know he's gone." I got in my car, and before I could start the engine, she leaned toward the window. "You might want to check your backseat," she whispered. My heart stopped. I turned around slowly, expecting the worst. But there was nothing there. Just my backpack. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was there. Watching, waiting. When I got home that night, I plugged in my recorder and played back the audio. For the first 10 minutes, it was the usual footsteps, static, the occasional breath. Then about halfway through, I heard the humming again, faint, distant. And after it, a voice. This time clear. "Close." It said, "Stay." Then the sound of a man laughing, deep, slow, like he was right beside the mic. I stopped the recording immediately. When I looked at the file on my computer, I noticed something strange. The timestamp on the final clip wasn't from that night. It was from the next morning. Recorded at 3:12 a.m. while I was asleep. They say Roy still wanders rolling hills, searching for the mother who never came. But sometimes I wonder if he's still searching for me. Audio log, October 18th, 2015, Vicksburg, Mississippi. This is Mark Ellis, lead investigator for Delta Paranormal. We're on site at the old Coon Memorial State Hospital. Our goal tonight, document evidence of the reported apparitions on the 3rd floor and the morgue wing. If I'd known what we were about to find, I would have turned that damn car around. Coon Memorial sits on the edge of Vicksburg like a tomb, red brick walls crumbling, windows shattered, vines crawling up the old wards. It was abandoned in the late 1980s after years of neglect. Locals say the place is cursed. They talk about screams coming from inside, lights flickering in rooms with no power, and figures moving behind the windows long after dark. That's exactly the kind of story we lived for. Our team, me, Rachel, and Chris, arrived just after sunset. The air was heavy, the kind of humid that sticks to your skin and makes it hard to breathe. The hospital loomed ahead, silent except for the wind rattling the loose glass. We parked near the back entrance, unloaded our gear, cameras, EMF meters, thermal scanners, and stepped inside. The moment we crossed the threshold, the temperature dropped by at least 10 degrees. The interior was worse than I expected. Long hallways lined with rusted beds, paint peeling in sheets, the smell of mildew so thick it burned the back of my throat. Graffiti covered the walls, tags, satanic symbols, crude warnings like "Do stay after midnight." Rachel laughed nervously. "Well, that's comforting," she said. Chris just muttered, "Looks like home," and switched on his night vision camera. We started our sweep on the 2nd floor, the old surgical wing. Every step echoed down the hall like a gunshot. I called out, "Is anyone here with us tonight?" Silence. Then faintly a knock. 3 times. It came from somewhere down the hall. We froze. Chris aimed the camera toward the sound, and through the green glow of the night vision, I saw something move, just a flash, a shadow slipping into one of the side rooms. We followed. The room was empty except for an overturned gurney and a trail of old blood stains leading to the doorway. The stains looked fresh in the infrared, too fresh for a building that had been abandoned for decades. Rachel whispered, "Mark, that's not old." She was right. We kept going, unease creeping up our spines. The deeper we went, the worse the smell got: rot, damp concrete, and something else underneath. Something metallic. We reached the staircase to the basement. A rusted sign above it read, "Morgue." Chris hesitated. "You sure we want to go down there?" I nodded. "That's where the activity's supposed to be." We descended slowly, our flashlights cutting thin beams through the dark. At the bottom, the hallway opened into a wide, tiled room, rows of old drawers lining the walls where bodies used to be stored. Rachel whispered, "This place gives me the creeps." I agreed, and I've been in a lot of creepy places. Then we heard it, a faint dragging sound coming from somewhere in the darkness. Something or someone was moving. We turned toward the sound, and the beam of my flashlight caught a shape at the far end of the room. A person crawling. "Hey," I shouted. "You okay?" No answer. The shape vanished behind a doorway. We ran after it. When we reached the corridor beyond, the smell hit us full force, sweet, rotten, unmistakable. And then Rachel screamed. Her light had caught something lying just behind a broken partition, a body. A real human body. I remember every detail: the pale skin, the torn clothes, the blood dried in streaks along the floor. It wasn't a ghost. It wasn't a prank. It was real. Chris threw up against the wall. Rachel was shaking, whispering, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God," over and over. I pulled out my phone and called 911. The dispatcher didn't even sound surprised when I told her where we were. "You're at Coon Hospital?" she asked. "Yes, stay where you are. Don't touch anything." We waited in silence for what felt like an eternity. Then we heard footsteps again, coming down the stairs. Slow, deliberate. We called out, thinking it was the police. No answer. The steps stopped right at the doorway. I swung my light toward it, but there was no one there. Just the sound of breathing. Low, rugged, right behind us. When the police finally arrived, they made us wait outside while they checked the basement. They confirmed it later. The victim was a 69-year-old woman named Sharon Wilson. She'd been reported missing that morning. Someone had killed her inside the hospital and dragged her body toward the exit. The killer was still out there. The cops questioned us for hours. They thought maybe we'd stumbled onto something we weren't supposed to see, or someone we weren't supposed to find. And that's when things started getting strange. After the investigation, I couldn't sleep for days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that basement, the way the shadows moved just before we found her. 2 nights later, I got a call from Rachel. She sounded terrified. "Mark," she said, "someone been calling my house. They don't say anything, just breathing." I tried to calm her down, told her it was probably a prank. But I'd been getting the same thing. The first call came the night after we got home. Unknown number. I picked up and all I heard was that same sound, slow, heavy breathing. I hung up. It called again an hour later. A week after that, I went back to Vicksburg. I needed to know what happened, who Sharon Wilson was, why she ended up there. The police wouldn't tell me much. But one officer pulled me aside and said, whoever did it, they knew the place. They'd been there before. Probably watched you go in. That's when it hit me. The footstep, the breathing, the movement in the hall. What if that wasn't a ghost at all? What if we'd been hunted while we were hunting? Months passed and life moved on mostly. Chris quit the team. Rachel moved out of state. I told myself it was over. But then one night, while reviewing old footage from Kuhn, I saw something I'd missed before. Right before we found the body, in the corner of the frame, there was a reflection in a broken window. A man, standing behind us. He wasn't any of us. He wasn't police. He was just standing there, watching. And in his hand, glinting under the flashlight beam, a knife. I turned off the video right there. Deleted every file. But sometimes when I'm working late, reviewing new recordings, I'll hear it again. That same dragging sound. That same slow, labored breathing. And I swear to God, it's not coming from the tape. It's coming from behind me. Detroit has no shortage of forgotten places. Factories, schools, theaters, each one left to rot under layers of dust and graffiti. But none of them felt like this. When I stepped inside Southwest Detroit Hospital for the first time, I thought I was chasing another ghost story. Instead, I found a record of madness. Not haunting, not legend, but truth buried under 40 years of silence. I first heard about the hospital through an urban explorer named Travis, a quiet guy I met online who filmed abandoned buildings around Michigan. He'd uploaded a video titled, "The One Building I'll Never Enter Again." In the video, you could see him walking through the hospital's crumbling corridors, flashlights sweeping over graffiti and broken glass. Then at the 2-minute mark, he stops in front of a locked steel door in the basement. A muffled noise like metal dragging across concrete comes from the other side. He whispers hello, the camera shakes violently. The screen cuts to black. The last frame shows a timestamp, April 19th, 2021, 3:42. Travis never posted again. That's what drew me there. Southwest Detroit Hospital opened in 1974, one of the first Black-owned hospitals in the U.S. It closed less than a decade later. The official reason, financial collapse. Unofficially, rumors of illegal experiments, disappearances, and a wing that was quietly sealed off for structural reasons. Locals said you could still hear the generators humming underground, even though the power had been cut decades ago. When I got there, the place was worse than any photo online. Every window smashed, the roof half collapsed, trees growing through the parking lot. But the strangest thing, there was power. A faint buzz from inside, lights flickering on the lower floors. Someone was running electricity in there. I entered through a side door that had been pried open. The air was thick with mold and old chemicals. The main hallway stretched into darkness, faded signs still hanging. Intensive care right arrow, pediatrics left arrow. The deeper I went, the louder the hum became. It led me to a small room marked security. Inside were rusted filing cabinets, an overturned desk, and something I didn't expect. A digital recorder, red light still blinking. It was modern. Someone had been here recently. I pressed play. Audio log, February 12th, 2021. This is Dr. Marcus, entry number 12. The lower levels are active again. I don't know who authorized it, but the power's been rerouted. The floor hums at night. You can feel it, like something alive under the concrete. I froze. There was more static then. They said the tests ended in '83. But I found the equipment. Still running, still warm. The tape ends abruptly. There were 6 more files labeled with dates, each more recent. Whoever Dr. Marcus was, he'd been here just months before I arrived. Behind the security room, a narrow stairwell led down, further than the blueprint said it should. The air was colder. Halfway down, my flashlight flickered. I tapped it and it came back just long enough to reveal a second steel door, the same kind from Travis's video. And it was open. Inside, the walls were lined with strange equipment, cables, monitors, and a surgical table in the center, draped with a plastic sheet. Beneath it, dark stains spread across the tiles. There were no ghosts here. No signs of squatters. Just machines old but not dead. And on the far wall, carved in shaky handwriting, the sound keeps them alive. I recorded everything, then found another object on a counter, a stack of medical logs wrapped in decayed plastic. They were dated between 1978 and 1983, signed by a doctor. Harold Marcus, the same name from the recorder. Each entry became stranger. Subject 4 reacted violently to low-frequency exposure. Staff reports auditory hallucinations. Sound levels increased to 19 Hz. Result, cessation of brain activity for 47 seconds. Recovery spontaneous. The resonance field appears to trigger a form of cellular reanimation, though not stable. It sounded insane, like science fiction. But the deeper I read, the clearer it became. They weren't experimenting on volunteers. They were experimenting on patients. The next audio log played automatically when I powered up one of the monitors. Audio log March 4th, 2021, this is Dr. Marcus. The hospital was never meant to close. They shut it down because the frequencies got out of control. You can hear them if you listen closely, beneath the floor, beneath the hum. It's not electricity. It's them. Long pause. Travis came back last week. I told him not to go below the morgue. I told him. My blood went cold. He knew Travis. He knew what happened to him. Then I heard something faint from the hallway. A metallic thump. Then another, like someone dragging a chair. I turned off the recorder and listened. The sound came closer, slow, rhythmic, echoing up the stairwell. I backed toward the exit, but the lights above began to flicker. For a second, I swear I saw a shadow move under the floor, as if the ground itself was rippling. And through the hum of the machines, I heard something else. A voice, faint low, like someone whispering from inside the walls. Don't leave me down here. When I finally got out, dawn was breaking over Detroit. I sat in my car, hands shaking, playing the recordings over and over. I uploaded the files to an archive forum that same night, but within 24 hours, they were taken down. The message said, removed by request of you. As Department of Health and Human Services. That's when I realized this wasn't just some ghost story. The government knew about these experiments, and they were still protecting them. I kept digging. Through public records, I found a lawsuit filed in 1984 against Southwest Detroit Hospital, sealed under national security orders. The plaintiff's name, Margaret Travis. Travis's mother. She claimed her son, a child patient at the hospital, disappeared during a sound therapy program run by Dr. Marcus. The case was dismissed due to lack of evidence. I checked the death certificate. Date of death, April 19th, 1983. The exact date on Travis's camera, nearly 40 years later. Now I understand what Dr. Marcus meant when he said the frequencies keep them alive. Whatever they were doing, whatever they built down there, it never stopped. That hum under the floor, it's not power lines. It's the machine, still running, still calling to something. Sometimes at night when everything is quiet, I play the last audio log again. Audio log April 19th, 2021, the resonance chamber is active. The subjects respond to sound. Travis, he's awake now. But he's not him anymore. Mom, the recording ends. Southwest Detroit Hospital still stands today. The city keeps talking about demolishing it, but somehow they never do. Power companies deny any electricity flows there. Yet at night, people walking past swear they can hear it, a low, constant hum rising from beneath the ground. Some say it's the old machines running. Others say it's the voices of the ones who never left. But I've heard it myself, and whatever it is, it's still getting louder. Audio log March 12th, 2022, 11:03 p.m. This is, well, I don't know how long I'll be able to keep track of time. My name is Alex Grant. I was hired to document and inspect Whisper Hill Asylum before the city demolishes it. They said it was routine. I've done dozens of buildings like this. Empty hospitals, old mental institutions, abandoned schools. But this place, it's different. The first thing I noticed when I arrived was the smell, not mold, not mildew, something sharper, like rusted metal and decay. I had to roll my sleeves up just to keep from gagging. The front entrance was chained, but the lock was old, corroded. I popped it open with a crowbar and stepped inside. The hallway stretched endlessly. My flashlight barely cut through the darkness. Broken tiles crunched under my boots. Rusted wheelchairs leaned against the walls like forgotten sentinels. I set up my first recording. Just a video camera, battery operated, no tripod. I didn't know it yet, but that camera would be the only thing I had to prove I was here. By the second floor, the place started to feel alive. I don't mean ghosts, I mean aware. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like footsteps behind me. Every groan of the ceiling was heavier than it should have been. And the deeper I went, the more I felt something pressing down, like the building itself was breathing, waiting. I went into one of the old patient rooms. Paint paling, a bed frame still bolted to the floor. On the wall, faint scratches, names, dates. I couldn't tell. But it looked deliberate, like someone had clawed at the plaster. And then I heard it. A voice, soft, almost whispered, "Don't leave." I spun around. Nothing. My flashlight caught nothing. Only shadows. I kept moving. By the third floor, I had started labeling rooms in my notes. Surgical wing, pediatrics, Ward C. Every hallway seemed to lead me deeper into a part of the hospital, not on any map. That's when I saw it, a door, half caved in, barely hanging on its hinges. The metal was corroded, the paint scorched. I tried to push it open. It moved slowly, reluctantly, creaking like it hadn't been touched in decades. Inside, I found remnants. Instrument, metal trays, bloodstains dried but unmistakable, and more scratch marks on the walls. The smell hit me instantly like iron and decay, and my stomach turned. I took photos and video, careful not to disturb anything. My flashlight caught something else, faint, barely visible, moving in the far corner. I blinked. Nothing. I kept a log as I went. 11:45 p.m. Hallway to Ward C is longer than it should be. Light from my flashlight doesn't reach the end. I swear I see movement just beyond the beam. 12:03 a.m. Something's wrong with the floorboards. They feel soft, not rotten soft, almost like they're shifting. 12:15 a.m. I hear whispers again. No words this time, just noise, like someone talking underwater. By 1:00 a.m. I realized I was lost. The hallways looped back on themselves. Rooms repeated. Doors that weren't there before. I started to panic. My phone had no signal. Batteries were low. My flashlight flickered constantly. I don't know if I was hallucinating, but shadows moved against the walls on their own. Shapes humanoid but wrong. Too tall, too thin, bending angles a human should. I tried to leave. I swear I tried. I found the basement stairwell. Broken, rusted, leading down into blackness. My camera battery had 10% left, but I had to see. The basement smelled like wet concrete and something dead. I swear I heard a gurney roll past me, metal scraping concrete. No wind, no one there. Then I saw them. Figures in the shadows crouched still. Watching, waiting, not moving toward me, but everywhere I looked. I couldn't blink without seeing one. Audio log 1:47 a.m. I don't know how long I can hold this together. The walls seem alive. The shadows follow me even when I turn away. I tried to call the city office to report what I found, no signal. My phone died. I hear whispers chanting now. Not words I understand, just rhythm. Footstep, laughing, crying, mixed together. The floor beneath me vibrates slightly, almost imperceptibly. I try to step back, but I'm trapped. By 2:30 a.m., I realized something terrible. This building doesn't want me to leave. I don't think it's haunted. Not exactly. It's alive. Or it remembers. Every scream, every shout, every patient who died here, it knows. And now it knows me. I can hear breathing behind walls. Shuffling feet in rooms I haven't entered. Whispers that echo my own thoughts. Audio log 3:15 a.m. I'm running out of ways to describe what's happening. The camera records it all. Shapes moving. Screams I haven't heard since I was a child, mine, theirs, I don't know anymore. I write this to warn anyone who finds it, don't come here. The building, it waits. It listens. It remembers. I tried to climb the stairs. They go nowhere. Hallways bend back. The exit door I entered through is gone. Audio log 4:02 a.m. It whispers my name now. Alex, Alex, I hear footsteps above, behind, everywhere. I see shadows in corners, lining, stretching, moving toward me when I'm not looking. The floor vibrates beneath me. Something cold touches my shoulder. I turn, nothing. The camera battery is at 2%. Final entry 4:27 a.m. I don't know if I'll make it out. The building doesn't let anyone leave. If anyone finds this, don't follow me. Don't come here. The audio distorts. Static. Then faint whispering, don't leave, stay, stay. Recording cuts abruptly. No sound after. Closing narration ambiguous. Whisper Hill Asylum is scheduled for demolition. The city claims it's empty. But those who have walked near it at night swear they can hear whispers, names, cries, footsteps that echo through the walls long after the building should be silent. I can't say what happened to Alex, or Travis, or anyone who dared step inside. And maybe that's the point. Some buildings never let you leave. Some horrors don't end when the doors close. Some stories remain unfinished.